Welcome to Middle Class Matters Business News in English from Dr. CMA Allegation. Democratic backsliding in the world's largest democracy, that is in India. Part 2 of this continues. I am reading an article written by Mr. Das from Ashoka University to educate the people on what is happening in India. Part 2. Electoral manipulation, on the other hand, can take place at the stage of voter registration, that is, registration manipulation, or at the time of voting or counting, turnout manipulation. To examine the mechanisms facilitating manipulation, I focus on Muslim voters who generally do not support BJP version 2019 and are easily identified in the voter list due to their culturally distinct names. Therefore, they are potentially subject to both registration and turnout manipulation. I consider two channels. First, strategic deletion of Muslim names from the list of registered voters or electoral rolls. Legni 2022. Second, strategic suppression of Muslim voters at the time of voting or counting. Negus 2018. I do not consider the possibility of manipulation of EVMs themselves as a mechanism, as Purvaksh Shah and Sinha 2019 have pointed out that given its technology, it is odd to manipulate them at scale. To test for registration manipulation, I compute growth rate of electorate, that is, number of registered voters for each parliamentary constituency PC between 2014 and 2019. I show that the growth rate falls discontinuously by 5% points compared to mean of 0.09 in PCs barely won by BJP, and the fall is concentrated in parliamentary constituencies with higher share of Muslim electorate. To examine turnout manipulation, I first examine the absolute difference between the two official versions of EVM turnout data. The discrepancies could be due to administrative errors during counting of votes. However, the extent of discrepancy in that case should not exhibit any discontinuous change with respect to the incumbent's win margin at its threshold value of 0. I, however, find that there is a large discontinuous increase in the magnitude of data revision at the threshold. Consistent with previous results, the discontinuity is concentrated in BJP ruled states. I interpret the evidence on turnout discrepancy as indicative of manipulation done locally at the polling stations rather than resulting from aggregation fraud at the constituency level. It is unlikely that ECI would engage in direct tampering of turnout data ex post. Moreover, barring one case, the magnitude of data revision is smaller than BJP's absolute margin of victory. I show that polling station level election outcomes in the relevant parliamentary constituencies exhibit irregularities consistent with local manipulation. To examine whether turnout manipulation was in part facilitated by weak monitoring of counting of votes, I analyzed the assignment of counting observers across parliamentary constituencies. I compute the fraction of counting observers assigned in a parliamentary constituency who are from the State Civil Services SCS as opposed to the Indian Administrative Services IAS. Since SCS officers are appointed by the state government, unlike the IAS officers who are centrally appointed, they are more likely to be politically playable. I also compute the fraction of observers in a parliamentary constituency who are SCS and work in a BJP ruled state. I find that both fraction exhibits large positive and statistically significant discontinuity at the BJP win margin of 0. For the fraction of SES officers from BJP ruled states, the discontinuity is larger in magnitude in parliamentary constituencies of BJP ruled states, while it is smaller and statistically insignificant for non BJP ruled states. Additionally, in parliamentary constituencies won by BJP, the fraction of counting observers who are SCS and come from BJP ruled states positively predicts the extent of turnout data discrepancy in the PCs. In the parliamentary constituencies that BJP lost, no such relationship holds. I analyze polling station level election results to test for local manipulation. For each polling station, I compute the vote share of BJP at that polling station relative to its vote share in the PC. I refer to this as the relative BJP vote share. This makes comparison of polling station across constituencies easier. I show that within a constituency, relative BJP vote share typically hovers around 1 across polling stations with different turnout, except in closely contested constituencies barely won by BJP in BJP ruled states. In those constituencies, a relative vote share of BJP exhibits a large spike in polling stations with high turnout. The pattern is replicated with a polling station level indicator of BJP's vote share exceeding 95th percentile of its distribution. I compute the distribution of second digit in the polling station level vote tallies of the candidates to measure departure from Benford's law at the polling station level. Benford's law specifies distribution of digits in naturally occurring numbers, and departures of the observed distribution from Benford's specification is often used as an indicator of manipulation. I show that the departures from Benford's law exhibit the same pattern. Additionally, I perform tests on the shape of the BJP's vote share density proposed in more recent research on electoral fraud and find results consistent with fraud. Moreover, the spike in the relative BJP vote share mentioned above is higher in parliamentary constituencies with larger discrepancy in turnout data. While the first couple of results are consistent with both mechanisms, the rest of the results indicate manipulation. Finally, manipulation in the form of targeted electoral discrimination against Muslim voters would imply that within a parliamentary constituency barely won by BJP, high vote shares of the party should be concentrated in areas with higher Muslim presence. On the other hand, if precise control is the appropriate explanation, then we should expect the opposite, as the increase in BJP's vote share in 2019 relative to 2014 came primarily from Hindus, especially from its lower caste groups, while its support among Muslims was low and constant across the two elections. I matched the data on AC level electorate share of Muslims prescribed above to polling stations to test the above hypothesis. The ACs are smaller than PCs, and each PC contains about 7 ACs on average assembly constituencies. The matched data therefore provides us within parliamentary constituency variation in electorate share of Muslims across polling stations located in different assembly constituencies. I find that in parliamentary constituencies that BJP barely lost, its vote share is less likely to exceed the 95th percentile in polling stations located in high Muslim share assembly constituencies within the parliamentary constituency. However, this negative relationship gets significantly reduced in parliamentary constituencies barely won by the party. In those parliamentary constituencies, the likelihood of the event does not fall in assembly constituencies with higher Muslim share. This again supports the manipulation hypothesis. The paper is unable to comment on the overall extent of manipulation in the 2019 general election. It focuses on closely contested constituencies and as an empirical strategy to detect the presence of political potential manipulation. Back of the envelope circulation calculation shows that in parliamentary constituencies with BJP's win margin less than 5%, BJP's excess win is in about 11 parliamentary constituencies. Therefore, even if all the disproportionate wins of BJP in closely contested parliamentary constituencies is due to manipulation, it likely would not have changed the government formation. Nonetheless, the results signify a worrying development for the future of democracy in India and consequently in the world at large. This paper contributes to our understanding of democratic backsliding in consolidated democracies using objective measures. Little and Mang 2023 argue that subjective evaluation of nature of democracy by experts may be subject to their biases. Therefore, claims about democratic backsliding need to be grounded in more objective evidence. The authors examine objective measures of democracy and do not find any evidence of systematic backsliding across democracies. They conclude it may be the case that major backsliding is occurring precisely in ways that elude objective measurement. However, this is an extraordinary claim which requires a stronger theoretical and empirical basis than has been offered to date. Additionally, several studies examining democratic backsliding have focused on the demand side issues, specifically voters' willingness to sacrifice democratic principles in the context of increased polarization, rise in populism, resulting in dismantling of checks and balances. The paper shows that dilution of electoral integrity is also an important and supply side contributor to democratic backsliding. Several consolidated or stable democracies such as India, Mexico, Hungary have witnessed weakening of its electoral institutions in recent times. It is relevant to understand whether and how this weakening contributes to democratic backsliding. There is little evidence in mature democracies of direct electoral fraud typically observed in weaker democracies such as ballot stuffing, booth capturing, or direct manipulation of data by election authorities. Incumbents in these countries are likely to adapt subtler strategies such as fragmentation of opposition or voter suppression. My examination of latest general election in India adds to our understanding of this process. Empirical analysis of electoral fraud have typically focused on weak democracies such as Afghanistan, Ghana, Nigeria, Russia, Soviet, Mexico, 19th century of Germany, or local elections in robust democracies such as Japan. In these cases, the nature of fraud typically entails aggregation fraud, tampering of election documents at the polling station level, etc. In the case of India, my paper shows manipulation took the form of localized and targeted discrimination against a well identified minority group via manipulation of voter registration as well as weaker monitoring of the election process. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share as many people as possible to educate the people on our election system. Thanks for watching.